Commander Vex-Thorian of the Galactic Council tapped his three-fingered claws against the obsidian table, producing a rhythmic clicking that echoed through the vast chamber. The sound bounced off walls lined with holographic displays, showing dozens of star systems, each one representing a conquered species. Today they were adding another. "So," he began, his voice dripping with amusement, "we're seriously considering these humans? The bipedal creatures from that backwater planet they call Earth." The assembled delegates, representing 47 different species, shifted in their seats. Some chittered with laughter. Others hissed in what passed for their version of humor. At the far end of the table, Ambassador Quinn Melak, a towering figure with purple skin and 4 arms, leaned forward. "Commander," "If I may," Quinn Melak's voice rumbled like distant thunder, "these humans possess certain qualities that make them ideal candidates for our labor programs." "Oh, do tell." Vex-Thorian's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered a grin. "What makes these particular mammals so special?" The holographic display above them shifted, showing images of humans engaged in various activities. Construction workers building skyscrapers, miners extracting resources from deep underground, soldiers marching in formation, scientists working in laboratories. Observe their endurance. Quinn Melak gestured with 2 of his arms. They work for 8 to 12 hours daily, sometimes more. They require minimal rest compared to other species we've encountered. Their adaptability is remarkable. They function in extreme temperatures, high altitudes, underwater environments. Delegate Kor Visim, a reptilian creature with scales that shimmered like oil, interrupted with a harsh laugh. "Impressive, yes, but what about their intelligence? Surely they can't be that bright if they haven't achieved interstellar travel yet?" "Ah, but that's where it gets interesting." Vex-Thorian pulled up another display. "They're intelligent enough to be useful, but not so advanced that they pose a threat. Perfect worker drones, really. They even have a history of enslaving each other. Makes our job easier when they already understand the concept." The chamber filled with various sounds of alien amusement, clicking, hissing, warbling, and several untranslatable noises that conveyed satisfaction. However, Vex-Thorian continued, his tone becoming more serious, "There is one small concern. Their propensity for violence." This statement caused a moment of silence. Then, suddenly, the entire chamber erupted in laughter. The sound was cacophonous, a mixture of alien vocal cords producing what could only be described as cosmic hysteria. "Violence?" Delegate Yith Naran, a gelatinous being whose form rippled with each word, managed to speak between what passed for giggles. "Commander, we've conquered species that can manipulate gravity with their thoughts. Beings made of pure energy, creatures that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. What could these primitive humans possibly do to us?" Vex-Thorian nodded, though something in his compound eyes suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. "Fair point. Still, their military history is extensive. They've been fighting wars for millennia. Nuclear weapons, chemical warfare, biological agents, all primitive technology." Quinn Melak waved dismissively. "We've dealt with far worse. The Krillian Empire had weapons that could tear holes in space-time itself, and we subjugated them in less than a standard year." "True enough," Vex-Thorian conceded. "Very well then, let's put it to a vote. All in favor of adding the human species to our labor acquisition program?" One by one, appendages of various shapes and sizes rose around the table. Tentacles, claws, mechanical prosthetics, energy fields shaped into voting gestures. The count was unanimous. "Excellent." Vex-Thorian's mandibles clicked rapidly. "I hereby authorize the deployment of our standard subjugation fleet to the Sol system. Estimated arrival time? 3 standard months, Commander," came the reply from the navigation officer, a crystalline being whose voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Perfect. That gives us time to prepare the processing facilities. Now, let's discuss the logistics." What followed was a detailed planning session that would have made any military strategist proud, if not for the casual way they discussed the enslavement of an entire species. Route compositions, orbital bombardment strategies, population processing centers, work assignment protocols. Each topic was covered with the efficiency of beings who had done this many times before. 3 months later, the human governments of Earth received what they initially thought was a prank when massive alien vessels appeared in their skies. The ships were imposing, sleek constructs that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They positioned themselves over major population centers and transmitted a message in every human language simultaneously. The message was simple, direct, and delivered with the casual indifference of someone reading a grocery list. Greetings. Greetings, humans of Earth. You have been selected for integration into the Galactic Council's labor acquisition program. Resistance is futile and will result in unnecessary casualties. You have 48 hours to surrender unconditionally. Compliance will ensure your continued existence in a productive capacity. Non-compliance will result in the total annihilation of your species. Thank you for your cooperation. The human response was predictable. Military installations worldwide went to maximum alert. Nuclear submarines surfaced, missile silos opened, fighter jets scrambled into the sky. The aliens watched this display with what could only be described as amused tolerance. Look at them. Vex-Thorian observed from the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Like insects, showing their stingers to a giant. How quaint. Quaint. His tactical officer, a spider-like creature named Vex-Thorian, chittered softly. Should we disable their weapons, Commander? Let them exhaust themselves first. It's always entertaining to watch primitives waste their resources on futile gestures. The humans launched everything they had. Nuclear missiles streaked toward the alien vessels, only to be effortlessly intercepted by energy shields that made the weapons simply disappear upon contact. Fighter jets engaged in aerial combat with alien craft that moved like liquid mercury, never quite where the pilots expected them to be. After 6 hours of this one-sided conflict, Earth's military capabilities were effectively neutralized, not destroyed, mind you, simply rendered irrelevant. The aliens had demonstrated their technological superiority without firing a single shot in anger. Then came the second transmission. Humans of Earth, your 48-hour grace period has been reduced due to your hostile response. You now have 12 hours to surrender. Further resistance will be met with proportional consequences. To demonstrate their point, they selected a small uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean and made it disappear. Not exploded, not vaporized, simply gone. Where there had once been rock and sand, there was now only empty ocean. The world's leaders went into emergency session. Panic spread through populations as people realized that humanity had encountered something far beyond their capability to resist. Social media exploded with theories, prayers, and final messages from people who assumed the end was near. But humans, being humans, didn't surrender. Instead, they did something the Galactic Council had never encountered in over 2,000 years of conquest. They started planning. Not the desperate, scattered planning of a dying species, but the methodical, determined planning of a species that had climbed to the top of their world's food chain by being adaptable, cunning, and absolutely refusing to give up even when the odds were impossible. In bunkers around the world, military leaders, scientists, engineers, and philosophers worked together. They analyzed every second of footage from the alien encounters, studying the ships, the weapons, the tactics. They couldn't match the aliens' technology, but they could try to understand it. Dr. Elena Martinez, a physicist at CERN, stared at the data streams on her computer screen. These energy signatures, she muttered to herself. They're not what I expected. Her colleague, Dr. James Parker, looked over her shoulder. What do you mean? Their shields, their propulsion systems, even their weapons. They're incredibly advanced, yes, but they're also predictable, following very specific patterns. So, Elena's eyes lit up with something that might have been hope. So patterns can be disrupted. We can't overpower them, but maybe, just maybe, we can outthink them. Meanwhile, in military command centers, generals and admirals were having similar realizations. The aliens' tactics were sophisticated but followed conventional strategic doctrine. They established orbital superiority, demonstrated overwhelming force, demanded surrender, and prepared for occupation. They're following a playbook, General Sarah Mitchell observed during a Joint Chiefs meeting. Every move they've made is textbook conquest strategy, which means they expect us to follow the standard response pattern. Admiral Robert Hayes finished. Resist briefly, then surrender when faced with superior force. But what if we don't? The question hung in the air like smoke from a battlefield. What if humanity didn't follow the script? As the 12-hour deadline approached, the world's leaders prepared their response. It wasn't surrender. But it wasn't exactly defiance either. It was something the Galactic Council had never encountered: negotiation. The transmission went out on all frequencies, directed at the alien fleet. To the representatives of the Galactic Council, this is the United Earth Coalition. We acknowledge your technological superiority and understand your position. However, we would like to propose a different arrangement. We request a meeting to discuss terms that might be mutually beneficial. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Vex-Thorian's compound eyes widened in surprise. In over 2 millennia, no species had ever tried to negotiate. They either surrendered immediately or fought until they were extinct. Curious, he mused. Very curious indeed. Vex-Thorian tilted his head, which involved rotating it nearly 180 degrees. Commander, this is unprecedented. Our protocols don't account for negotiation attempts. No, they don't, Vex-Thorian agreed, which makes this interesting. Very well. Let's see what these humans have to say. It might provide some entertainment before we process them. The meeting was arranged for the following day. A single human shuttle, broadcast live to the entire world, approached the alien flagship. Inside were 5 representatives: a diplomat, a scientist, a military officer, a philosopher, and, surprisingly, a comedian. A comedian? Vex-Thorian had questioned when reviewing the manifest. Humans have this strange custom, Vex-Thorian explained, of using humor in stressful situations. Perhaps they hope to make us laugh ourselves to death. The human delegation was escorted through corridors that seemed to bend space itself, past technologies that defied their understanding of physics, then into a chamber where they faced beings that could have stepped out of their wildest science fiction nightmares. Dr. Elena Martinez, serving as the scientific representative, tried to keep her composure as she took in the assembled aliens. The diversity was staggering: creatures of gas and crystal, beings of pure energy, life forms that challenged every assumption about what life could be. Ambassador David Kim, the diplomatic representative, stepped forward. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. We come not as conquerors or conquered, but as potential partners. The alien laughter that followed was like nothing any human had ever heard. It was the sound of cosmic indifference mixed with genuine amusement. Partners. Vex-Thorian's translation came through clearly. Little human, you seem to misunderstand the situation. You are not partners. You are resources, very useful resources, but resources nonetheless. With respect, Ambassador Kim continued, seemingly unfazed, we believe you may be underestimating what humanity can offer beyond simple labor. Oh? Quinn Malak leaned forward, all 4 arms resting on the table. And what exactly do you think you have to offer beings who can manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe? Colonel Sarah Thompson, the military representative, stepped forward. Creativity. The word hung in the air like a challenge. I beg your pardon? Vex-Thorian's mandibles clicked rapidly. Creativity, Colonel Thompson repeated. You've conquered hundreds of species, but you follow the same patterns, the same strategies, the same approaches. When was the last time any of your civilizations created something genuinely new? Something unexpected? Dr. Martinez nodded and activated a small holographic projector. Images began playing, showing human achievements: art, music, literature, scientific breakthroughs, technological innovations. We've been to our moon using chemical rockets and slide rules, she said. We've created machines that can think, music that moves the soul, stories that inspire generations. We've solved problems not through superior technology, but through imagination and determination. Professor William Hayes, the philosopher, added his voice. You've achieved technological perfection, but at what cost? You've created a universe of order, but no surprise, efficiency, but no innovation. Power, but no growth. And then, to everyone's surprise, including his own, comedian Mike Stevens spoke up. Plus, let's be honest here. When was the last time any of you guys actually had fun? The silence that followed was deafening, literally. The ambient sounds of the ship's systems seemed to pause, as if the universe itself was waiting for an answer. The question about fun had struck something deep within the alien assembly. At Vex-Thorian's compound eyes flickered as he processed the concept. When had he last experienced what humans called enjoyment? When had any of them? Fun, he repeated slowly, as if tasting an exotic flavor. You speak of pleasure derived from purposeless activity? Mike Stevens, sweating despite the ship's perfect climate control, managed a nervous grin. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds pretty pathetic. But yeah, basically. When did you last do something just because it made you happy? The assembled aliens exchanged glances, appendages, energy fields, and whatever passed for meaningful looks among their various species. The question was simple, but the answer was proving surprisingly elusive. Quinmalac's forearms shifted uncomfortably. Happiness is inefficient. We derive satisfaction from successful conquest, from expanding our territories, from perfect order. But that's not happiness, Dr. Martinez interjected gently. That's accomplishment. There's a difference between feeling good about something you've done and actually enjoying the process of doing it. Vex-Thorian tilted his spider-like head, explained this distinction. Professor Hayes stepped forward. Commander Vex-Thorian, when you conquered your last species, did you smile? Did you laugh? Did you feel joy? I felt satisfaction. Completion. The universe became more ordered, but did you enjoy it? Another pause. Longer this time. I do not understand the question. And there it was. The crack in the armor of galactic supremacy. These beings had become so focused on efficiency, order, and conquest that they had forgotten what it meant to simply exist for the pleasure of existing. Ambassador Kim sensed the shift in the room's atmosphere. What if we proposed something different? Instead of enslaving humanity, what if we offered to teach you something you've forgotten? And what? Vex-Thorian's voice carried a dangerous edge. Could primitives possibly teach us how to live instead of just existing? The words hit the chamber like a physical force. Several aliens actually recoiled, as if the concept was too foreign to process. Elaborate, Quinmalac demanded. Dr. Martinez activated her projector again. This time, the images showed humans at play, children laughing on playgrounds, families gathered around dinner tables, friends sharing jokes, couples dancing, artists creating for no purpose other than the joy of creation. This is a human invention called a joke, she began, showing a clip of a comedy show. It serves no practical purpose. It doesn't make us stronger or more efficient. It doesn't help us conquer worlds or build better weapons. It simply makes us laugh. Why? Delegate Core Vesim's scales rippled in confusion. Because laughter feels good. Because when we laugh, we forget our problems for a moment. Because sharing humor creates bonds between us. Inefficient. Yith-Naran's gelatinous form quivered, wasteful of time and energy. Is it though? Colonel Thompson challenged. Our studies show that humans who laugh regularly live longer, work more creatively, solve problems more effectively, and form stronger social bonds. Happiness isn't inefficient. It's fuel, Mike Stevens, emboldened by the fact that he wasn't dead yet, added. Plus, and I cannot stress this enough, it's way more fun than conquering planets. I mean, when was the last time any of you told a story just to make someone smile? Vex-Thorian stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor with a sound like breaking glass. Enough. You speak of frivolous concepts while your species faces extinction. We are not here to discuss philosophy or entertainment. We are here to process your surrender. But something had changed in his voice. The absolute confidence was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like uncertainty. Commander, Ambassador Kim said quietly. What if we made you a different offer? We are not interested in. What if we taught your people how to laugh? The chamber fell silent again. This time, however, the silence felt different, expectant rather than hostile. Explain. Explain, it's a cultural exchange. You don't enslave us. Instead, we share our inefficiencies with your people, our art, our music, our humor, our capacity for wonder. In return, you share your technology, your knowledge, your perspective on the universe. Quinn Millak's forearms crossed in what might have been skepticism. And you believe this laughter of yours has value equivalent to our advanced civilization. I believe, Professor Hayes said carefully, that a civilization that has forgotten how to smile might not be as advanced as it thinks. The insult was subtle but unmistakable. The comforting you. Several aliens bristled, making sounds that their translators couldn't quite process. You dare suggest Corvisium began. I dare suggest, Hayes interrupted, that you've conquered the galaxy but lost yourselves in the process. You've achieved perfect order at the cost of perfect emptiness. Dr. Martinez stepped closer to the alien delegation. Commander, may I ask you something personal? Vex-Thorian's mandibles clicked warily. Proceed. When you wake up each day, are you excited about what you're going to do? Do you look forward to anything? The question hung in the air like smoke. Vex-Thorian opened his mouth to respond, then closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. I maintain order. I serve the Council. I fulfill my duties. But do you want to? For the first time in over 2,000 years of galactic conquest, Commander Vex-Thorian of the Galactic Council found himself unable to answer a question. Zek Vorthan shifted nervously. Commander, this is clearly some form of psychological warfare, and we should proceed with the original plan. But Vex-Thorian held up one clawed appendage. Show us, he said quietly. Sir. They show us this laughter. Mike Stevens blinked in surprise. You want me to tell you a joke right now? In the middle of your alien conquest meeting? Yes. Yes, okay. Mike's mind went completely blank. Here he was, potentially the first human to tell a joke to an alien audience, and he couldn't think of a single funny thing to say. Then inspiration struck. A human, an alien, and a robot walk into a bar. The bartender looks up and says, "What is this? Some kind of joke?" The silence stretched so long that Mike began to wonder if he'd just doomed his entire species with the worst joke in human history. Then, impossibly, Vex-Thorian made a sound. It was somewhere between a wheeze and a clicking noise, but it was unmistakably laughter. I do not understand why that is amusing, he said between clicks. But it is. That's the point. Mike exclaimed. Jokes don't always make logical sense. Sometimes things are funny just because they're unexpected, or absurd, or because they point out something silly about the world. Other aliens began making their own versions of laughter like sounds, chittering, warbling, hissing, and several noises that had no earthly equivalent. Quinn Millak shook his massive head. This is preposterous. We are allowing ourselves to be distracted by meaningless diversions. Are we, though? Vex-Thorian turned to face his fellow council members. When did we stop being curious about new experiences? When did we decide that efficiency was more important than discovery? When we chose order over chaos? Corvisium replied firmly. When we decided to bring peace to the galaxy through strength. Peace, Professor Hayes mused. Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks more like emptiness. Emptiness? Yith Naran's form rippled indignantly. We have created the most advanced civilization in galactic history. Have you, though? Dr. Martinez challenged. Or have you simply created the most efficient one? There's a difference between advancement and achievement. She activated her projector one more time. The images that appeared showed human scientific breakthroughs, but not the discoveries themselves. Instead, they showed the moments of discovery. Scientists jumping up from their desks in excitement, researchers high-fiving after successful experiments, the pure joy on faces of people who had just solved a mystery of the universe. This is Dr. Marie Curie discovering radium. This is Dr. Alexander Fleming realizing that his contaminated culture plate had led to the discovery of penicillin. This is the team at CERN celebrating the confirmation of the Higgs boson. The aliens watched in fascination as human after human displayed genuine excitement about learning something new. Notice something. Dr. Martinez asked. They're not celebrating because they've gained power or established order. They're celebrating because they've learned something beautiful about how the universe works. When, she continued, was the last time any of you felt that kind of wonder about a discovery? The question hit its mark. Vex-Thorian's compound eyes dimmed as he contemplated millennia of conquest and administration. Efficient, yes. Successful, absolutely. Joyful? The concept seemed almost alien to him. We have achieved perfection, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Have you? Colonel Thompson asked. Or have you achieved stagnation? We have conquered hundreds of species, established peace across thousands of systems, and in the process, Ambassador Kim interrupted gently, you've conquered yourselves. You've become so focused on being in control that you've forgotten what it feels like to be surprised. Mike Stevens, feeling braver now that no one had vaporized him yet, added, plus, and I'm just throwing this out there, but your whole conquest thing is kind of predictable. I mean, show up, demand surrender, demonstrate superior firepower, establish order. Rinse and repeat for 2,000 years. Doesn't that get boring? Boring. Vex-Thorian's spider-like legs clicked against the floor. Order is not boring. Order is necessary, but it doesn't have to be the only thing. Dr. Martinez said, what if you could have both? Order and wonder, efficiency and joy? Strength and laughter? Vex-Thorian was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, smaller somehow. We have not created anything beautiful in a very long time. The admission hung in the air like a confession. You could start, Professor Hayes suggested. You could choose to create instead of conquer, to explore instead of dominate, to discover instead of control. And if we were to consider such a proposition, Quinn Melak said carefully, what exactly would you offer in return? Ambassador Kim smiled. Everything that makes us human. Our art, our music, our stories, our capacity for wonder, our ability to find joy in the smallest things, our tendency to ask what if instead of accepting what is. And in return, Dr. Martinez added, you could teach us about the universe from your perspective. Imagine what we could discover together. Not through conquest, but through collaboration. Vex-Thorian looked around the chamber at his fellow council members. For the first time in millennia, he saw uncertainty in their expressions, not the uncertainty of weakness, but the uncertainty of possibility. This is highly irregular, he said finally. The best things usually are, Mike Stevens replied. Very well, Vex-Thorian announced, his decision surprising even himself. We will experiment. A trial period, 1 Earth year. We will establish cultural exchange programs instead of processing facilities. We will observe whether this happiness you speak of has any practical value. And if it doesn't? Colonel Thompson asked. Vex-Thorian's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. Then we will have learned something new. And perhaps that will be enough. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, Vex-Thorian called out to them. Humans, one final question. This laughter, this joy you speak of, is it something that can be taught to anyone? Mike Stevens grinned. Commander, I've got about 10,000 years worth of human comedy to share with you. Trust me. By the time we're done, you'll be laughing at things that haven't even happened yet. And for the first time in over 2 millennia, Commander Vex-Thorian of the Galactic Council found himself looking forward to tomorrow. The vote to enslave humanity had been unanimous. The vote to learn from them was even more so. After all, who wouldn't want to discover what they'd been missing? The galaxy, it turned out, was about to become a much more interesting place.